Hey, welcome back to the How to Podcast series. This is Dave with you. Hope you're doing well. Hope your world's going great. Your podcast is doing awesome. All those good things are happening. It's October when I'm recording this. This is released in November. That's called batch recording, everybody. And November is our podcast month where we do a daily episode. So I hope you're enjoying a lot of content. There's lots to come. And I really enjoy November. It's an interesting challenge, this National Podcast Post Month, to do a daily episode every day in the month of November. But again, you can always record them in the past and release them in the future. It's a beautiful thing about podcasting. You don't have to do it live. You can do it ahead of time. You can edit. I see you out there, you people who think editing is terrible. You can edit your show and make it sound great. And you can record it in the past. So there's a lot of wins here when it comes to podcasting. And, the people that struggle to do a podcast on the day of, and then their guest doesn't show up, and they're scrambling on Facebook saying, I need somebody on my show. And we don't even know what they talk about on the show, but they just want somebody. You could be a little more organized. You could do it this way as an example and save yourself a little bit of grief, because you record it, in the past. I want to talk about something that I heard on a podcast. And at the time, the person who shared this quote didn't really know where it came from and said they would look for it, but they didn't, because they didn't put it in the show notes or they forgot. But it was a quote that really kind of stuck with me. And when I heard about this quote and heard it mentioned, I thought of you guys. I thought of you as a listener here on the How to Podcast series and how we can take this quote and apply it to our podcast. The podcast that we build is super important. And I think this quote really kind of gives us some parameters, some guidelines, some guardrails, like on the side of the highway that keeps you from going off that steep cliff or into that pond. Those are guardrails. And I think this quote could be kind of like a guardrail to keep us on track, keep us on the road, and keep us from danger. And this is a quote from a scientist from the 18th century and from Germany. And his name is Christoph Lichtenberg. And 18th century German scientist is attributed to this quote. And the quote is, I know you're leaning forward, you're like, just tell us the quote, Dave. The quote is, what is new is rarely true, and what is true is rarely new. What is new is rarely true, and what is true is rarely new. Now, what does this have to do with podcasting? You're like, this is going to be good. Yeah, well, there's a few things I want to pull out from this, because when I heard it again, I thought of this audience. I thought of you, and I thought, wow, hey, there's something here for us. So let's get into this. Let's talk about this a little bit more. I think this quote, what is new is rarely true, and what is true is rarely new, highlights the reality that original podcast ideas are uncommon, and most successful methods are tried and tested. For podcasters, I think that this quote means that innovation is valuable, and foundational principles that we have in podcasting that are reliable practices are what usually leads to long-lasting success in podcasting. There's something here. And so here's some key points that I want to pull out from the quote. The first one is to lean on proven processes. So you know that I talk about this often on the show. There's no rules in podcasting. There's no rules. There's nobody telling you have to do it this way. And if they do say that, and if you hear any podcast guru say, here's my rule for this, and here's my rule for that, there are no rules. please back away from that guru. They're taking you down the wrong path. There's no rules. There are absolutely no rules in podcasting. A rule is set up by someone who wants to be a gatekeeper, and a gatekeeper is there to keep people out. Like a concert ticket gets you into the concert, and if you don't have a ticket, you don't come in. That's gatekeeping. We don't need that in podcasting. We don't need any guru telling you about a rule they've arbitrarily made up in Canva and said, this is a rule, everybody. And everyone salutes and says, yes, I agree. That's a rule. There's no rules. But there are proven processes that have results. Results that work. In most cases, for most podcasters. Not for everybody, and not all the time, but there's things that people have tried and proven to work, and they might just work for you. Most established podcasting workflows remain effective, like planning out your show, outlining what you're going to talk about, being consistent in your schedule when you release an episode, and editing. All of these things are time-tested practices that help creators launch and sustain quality shows. You don't have to edit your show, nope. But I can tell you your podcast will sound better and have better quality if you do, because you're going to take out all the junk, all of the boring stuff, all of the crap. So cut the crap and start editing your show, and you'll see better results in the long term. Following a classic structure for your podcast with how you create your ideas for your show, how you research your show, outlining what you're going to talk about, recording, editing, publishing, and how you tell people about your episode are all lead to dependable results. So that is something that is true. That is a proven process. Effective episode formats also are proven. Solo episodes, interview episodes, co-hosted episodes. They're rarely groundbreaking. They're quite common. But they consistently engage audiences when executed well, and the audience anticipates what the show will feel like because it kind of fits into what's already out there. Now, you could do a hybrid where you do all different things on your show. You're not bound by these things, but they are proven processes. So when you're starting out with your podcast for the first time, go and figure out what proven process that you align with. Use that as a starting point, and feel free to integrate and move around and try different things. And don't be worried about the rules, but lean on those proven processes. It's going to help you. And then the second part is to innovate carefully and purposefully at the same time. When we talk about truly new ideas in podcasting, they stand out. They get a lot of attention. They get a lot of publicity. They're in the news, but they rarely instantly lead to success for us as podcasters because they're untested. Their formats or their ways of approaching podcasting that are new. And in this untested phase, people gravitate towards new without any form of verification that it's really a good path, a good choice for your show. And I've seen people completely abandon a working podcast to chase trends. And when you chase trends, trends come and, shockingly, trends go. And it's very difficult for your audience when you're unsure of your podcast, in that you are constantly reinventing the wheel. Sometimes you just need to put some miles on the wheel and keep doing what you're doing because your audience begins to feel comfortable with you, and they like the familiarity of your show and that you stick with what's working. So Innovate carefully, but do it with purpose as well. I love a show that's always growing, always pushing the boundaries, but you have to do it carefully and purposefully. Unique angles, creative segments, or experimental approaches to your podcast should be built atop of a solid foundation of what the show is. Some content pillars, some structure, which allows you to try different things, but it's still the same podcast. You can offer fresh perspectives or different voices without abandoning what listeners expect of your show, like great sound, editing, clear structure, and valuable content that brings them back episode to episode. Those are some of the things that you should be very careful about not replacing or altering too much that detract from what people love about your show in the first place. And if you don't know what people love about your show, it's maybe time to do an audience survey to get feedback on what's working and maybe what could be changed. Third part here is to focus on authenticity and consistency. Some people say that the word authenticity is overused. Maybe, but it's still relevant. We want to be an authentic person, and we want our show to be full of authentic touch points for our audience. And we want a show that's consistent. What remains true is the importance of building trust and connection with our listeners. That's what's true. Not chasing novelty just for its own sake or because we're just bored. Regular schedule of podcast episodes, authentic conversations, well-researched topics, and continuous improvement are all things that help your show to be a successful podcast. By being authentic in our topic selections and how we present our podcast and our audience engagement, it consistently yields to more loyalty from our listeners, and loyalty is the foundation of a solid podcast. Focus on what's authentic. Focus on consistency. That's what we owe our audience, episode to episode, week to week, month to month, year to year. That's what they're looking for, these things from us. And that's where we build a consistent audience. And we need to also respect the habits of our listeners. Most listeners are attracted to podcasts that are reliable and deliver what they expect from a listener's perspective. Clarity, value, quality, rather than reinventing the wheel on every episode. Too much focus on being new, trendy, and all of that, it actually can risk alienating your audience. And when they're just looking for something that's reliable and comforting. Imagine your favorite TV show on Netflix. And instead of it being episode to episode, right now my wife and I have just finished watching a bunch of Dexter episodes and the reboots of Dexter and all of that. You kind of know what the show's about. And if the show Dexter decided to go in a totally different direction, you'd be like, what happened to the show? I came here because I kind of know what the show is and kind of where it's going to go. Yeah, they're going to do interesting things, different things, but there's still a solid base to what the storyline of Dexter is. So I come to expect that. And your audience comes to expect a storyline with your show that's comfortable and familiar. That's what keeps people coming back. It's all about you and the content that you provide. Some best practice takeaways when we consider that quote, again, from that 18th century scientist. What is new is rarely true, and what is true is rarely new. Some best practice takeaways. Use established podcasting workflows that have been proven and their value has worked for thousands of creators before. Again, no need to go out and reinvent what podcasting is. There are some good understood, accepted practices in podcasting. Again, not rules, practices that have worked. Don't try to reinvent the wheel. Spend more time on your content and less time on being trendy and trying new things just because you're bored. Inject thoughtful innovation into your show, but don't abandon the classic elements of your podcast that people know and love. Having good quality content in your episodes, quality audio, great editing, relevance, and connection with an audience are all key things that we need in our podcast. And value the consistency and authenticity over chasing the new in podcasting. Experiment strategically and build upon what's proven, allowing incremental growth rather than upheaval and completely tearing down your podcast down to the foundation and rebuilding it every episode. Focus on what's working. Get feedback from a trusted source, somebody who knows podcasting, somebody who has a show called the How to Podcast series. Get trusted feedback from someone that you admire, that brings value to you, and you trust their opinion. Someone who knows what they're talking about. And don't rebuild your show every episode. You're giving yourself undue stress. Your show works. It just takes time. Successful podcast creators find their truth in refining the classic processes around their show by offering authentic voices as a podcaster in a world of AI, your human thoughts, voice, your personality. It's going to stand out from all that other stuff that's going on in podcasting and in content creation. Rather than seeking novelty for its own sake, focus in on your show and make your show the most authentic, reliable, and the one thing that's really true. Again, what is new is rarely true, and what is true is rarely new. Focus on what is true. Focus on what works for your show and get feedback. If you're not sure if your podcast is headed down the right path, I would love to help you. At howtopodcast.ca, we can talk about your show. We'll grab a virtual coffee together, and you and I can talk about your show and come up with some great pillars for your podcast, things that you can really build upon. A good foundation, strong and solid, that people will come back for again and again and again. If you feel like you're a little lost with your show, I'm offering free time in my calendar at howtopodcast.ca anytime. Would love to connect with you. Thanks for listening, and I'm looking forward to see what is new is rarely true, and what is true is rarely new for you. Thanks for being here. So I get asked quite often, usually at the end of a podcast, like right now, Dave, how can we help you? Like, how can we, as a listener, like, support the show? Can we come rake your leaves? Can we cut the grass? Shovel the snow? Watch your dog? Help you move? What can we do? Clean your dishes? Oh, that'd be interesting. Well, if you can't do that because, you're in Poland, maybe you can help us by supporting us with our Buy Me a Coffee. It's right there on our website. And, it just will help us to, A, stay fueled because, we drink a lot of coffee around here, and it helps the show. So if you want to help us, it's out of the goodness of your heart. I can tell you that listening to the podcast to this point, you've already helped us so much. But I do have people saying, Dave, I'd love to give back something small, even just to the show. Buy Me a Coffee link is on our website at howtopodcast.ca. And you can support the show that way. It would mean a lot to have you on our team supporting what we do here. If you find value in the show, then that's great. Share the show. Tell somebody about it. And when somebody says, Dave, I want to start a podcast, who should I check out? Oh, you should go check out the How to Podcast series because of all the great co-hosts and all the things that happen here, the meetups, everything. And I would appreciate that. And then fill our cup once in a while if you can. But again, thank you so much for being here and supporting the How to Podcast series. Take care. Talk soon. Hey, it's Dave. And just jumping here at the end to answer a question from a listener. We're doing this at the end of the podcast because most people are gone and you're still here with me. So let's have a few minutes together before we close off. The question is about episode numbers in the titles of your podcast episodes. Now, highly debated. A lot of people arguing, a lot of people picking sides on this. There's advantages and disadvantages for having episode numbers in the titles. You'll notice that I have episode numbers in all of my titles. It's very simple for me. I know there's reasons why people say not to, but for me, I find it easier to point people to a specific episode if I can give them an episode number, instead of giving them the title or the date of the episode release. It's much easier to say episode 76 than to try to explain to you the title of it and then have you search for that. So episode numbers at the beginning of the episode, people are going to tell you that the beginning of your episode title is the most important real estate you have. So to me, episode numbers are probably one of the most important parts of my podcast. So I'm putting the most important thing for me at the beginning of my episode titles. Now, that's the beauty of podcasting. You can do whatever you want. And you're not doing it wrong if you decide to do episode numbers in your titles. If you decide that you don't want episode numbers in your titles, you're not doing it wrong. If you decide to put the episode numbers at the end of your episode title, fine. Some of the things I'm working on, I'm playing with. And for me, I experiment all the time. I have not seen a negative impact on any of my shows, over 2,000 episodes, with or without episode numbers in the title, at the beginning, and not at all. I have not seen any significant thing to prove to me otherwise that having an episode number is a detriment to my show, despite what the experts are going to tell you, and you're going to get some very opinionated people in podcasting. I would encourage you to do what you want to do and what makes sense for you. If you're speaking from stage and you're saying to people, in episode 76, I talked about this, it's much easier to say that than trying to explain to an audience how to find an episode from your show. Use your show notes, have specific links to episodes you want to send people to. When you go on podcast as a guest and you know the topic you're going to be talking about as a guest on that show, have a few episodes that you could refer to in the conversation and say, we're talking about monetization today. I talked about monetization on my podcast. And then give the episode numbers and say this, if you want more, go to my podcast, say the name of your website, and look for episode this, and this, where we talked about monetization. Super easy for your audience to follow, easy to put links in show notes, and gives people direction. Instead of just come to my show or follow me on Spotify. Give them something specific. Episode numbers come in handy. Having them in your title, for me, works. But you have to do what works for you. If you have questions about this, I'd love to help you anytime. You know how to find me. Thanks for listening. And this is episode 512, by the way. It's in the title. Take care.